Hello everyone, I'm Rod Alberts, Executive Director of the North American International Auto Show. To say the last 6 months have been crazy is a major understatement. However, from chaotic times comes innovative solutions. With auto shows taking a break, we have created Queued Up Mobility. This online platform will serve as a forum for OEMs, suppliers, and various NAS partners to freely share information as if they were delivering it from our stage in Detroit at a normal auto show press conference. We look forward to the day where we can do it again in person, but in the meantime, we're happy to lend a hand with our Queued Up Mobility series. This first broadcast you will see is from our good friends at ZF. It is my honor to introduce our very first keynote speaker, Mr. Martin Fischer. Martin is the president of ZF North America and a member of the company's board of management. As you may know, ZF is a global technology company headquartered in Germany that supplies systems for passenger cars, commercial vehicles, and industrial technology. With 160,000 employees worldwide, ZF allows vehicles to see, think, and act in 4 technology domains, including vehicle motion control, integrated safety, automated driving, and electric mobility. Good morning, Martin, and thank you for being with us today.
Good morning, and thank you for having me today. I'm looking forward to spending some time together, and I would like to share some thoughts this morning on how us at ZF we navigate the uncertainties of the crisis and into an equally uncertain future. However, we find that future fairly promising. The automotive world has always been in flux, also before COVID. But it is fair to state that the current transformation is unprecedented. It's driven both by strong trends in the society and by strong technological progress. Where does that leave us in the industry? Well, aspirations are still the same, right? We all prefer to be in that blue balloon. And by the way, it's ZF Blue. Don't take that literally. So I am confident both companies and organizations can find their way to step up. I've seen that within ZF, and we see it with NIAS as well, who has brought up a brand new, innovative concept. I want to compliment the organizers also for starting that Queued Up Mobility series. It keeps the dialogue going and helps us keep an eye on our shared goal, returning to the show floor in person. COVID-19 has truly placed hardship on major parts of the world's population. Us in business, we have our hands full, keeping the businesses healthy and keeping our employees healthy at the same time. But the markets do not stop. We have seen major transformation in certain areas. I want to give you a couple of examples. Internet trade is just booming. Ourselves, we have been learning new ways of communication. And this morning again, we are learning that. And then looking into the automotive field, a new discussion has been triggered. Is it going to be about shared mobility going forward? Or do we stay more on the individual mobility? Look over to Europe. Good part of the economic stimulus has been used to support e-mobility. So electric vehicles are on the rise and get heavily promoted. And then last not least, developments in artificial intelligence and software, in data monetization, offer completely new revenue streams to companies who engage with them. So I want to share how we approach transformation in ZF. In order to get us grounded, let's have a look at our 4 trends, at the 4 fields that we want to shape with ZF. Number 1 is vehicle motion control. So everything that has to do with chassis controls and keeping vehicles safe on the road. Integrated safety. We use new sensors inside the vehicle and outside of the vehicle to better protect the occupants. And there's new restraint systems, new airbags that help doing so. And then we have automated driving as well as electric mobility. Now entering into the crisis and still experiencing that strong transformation of the industry, we apply our leadership principles to prevail. And here's 3 of them that I want to share with you that we considered utmost important in the current situation. So number 1 is agility requires confidence of leadership. Diversity is a force of strength. And courage needs to be demonstrated with actions. Going through the talk, we will hit on all these 3 leadership principles, and I'll give examples on how we apply them within ZF. So let's start with the first one. Agility requires confidence of leadership. What does that mean? Obviously, as the leaders in that situation, we want to be self-confident. But it's more than that. We want to be equally confident in the people that we have in place, in our leaders, to manage the situation. And this became super critical when we entered into the crisis. It happened at different times in different regions, and we know that different companies and governments approach it very differently, state by state, country by country. So when we look here into ZF North America, we reacted quickly and came up with a good set of rules that was clear. Wearing masks is 100% mandatory in our facilities. We offer home office options wherever possible. And then we have an entire rule book to say how we want to keep our facilities safe. And here kicks the principle in of confidence of leadership in order to be agile. We forwarded that rule set obviously to our sites, and we expected them and trusted them to apply them. So now, when we look back over the last 5-6 months, and we check out our data from contact tracing and infection rates, we can say that well worked. So that agility in the locations kept our employees safe, and we have a fairly good situation here within ZF. The same principle applies also in managing operations and financials. Another task force brought up the metrics that we wanted to watch going through the crisis and the principles in which we wanted to flex our capacities to the new situation. From there, functions and divisions took over. So here we go again. We delegate the responsibility because we know we can trust. The beauty of this concept is it leaves us room on the leadership level, on the top leadership level of the company, to look into the future. So it allows us to excel in the present and explore the future and shape the next generation mobility at the same time. Going further into the next chapters, I will offer you many evidences on how we did not neglect exploring and how we did not neglect the future in the last half year of crisis. That brings us to the next leadership principle. Diversity in general and diversity of thought is a strength. Let's have a look at our portfolio. Our aspiration at ZF is to be a systems leaders in all sorts of vehicle segments, so in passenger car, in shuttles, and in commercial vehicles. Why is that important? There's an obvious reason. We can carry over technology from one segment to the other. That's obvious again. And then on the other hand, we are more robust and insensitive when trends change. Let's look 2-3 years back. All of us, the industry, was convinced autonomous driving is going to come, and it's going to start off in the volume segment, in passenger cars. Well, in the meanwhile, the industry came to realize it entails a lot of technical complexity to make it happen. And here's 2 new segments that really move into the center, and that is shuttles, where we operate them in dedicated lane and limit the complexity to operating them in constrained areas. And then secondly, the commercial vehicles offer a business model to justify all that additional technology that goes into a truck. So here we see a changing trend. The good news for us playing in all segments is that we don't have to obsolete any of our prior investments, but can nicely benefit from them. So now we are here standing, how do we even accelerate that trend? How can we be more present in commercial vehicle automation? Well, we got our base investments in place. 5 years ago, we acquired TRW, and now we purchased WAPCO, which brings us again product expertise and base technology to play in that field. And we were asking ourselves, going forward, it does require significantly larger investment to get to these high levels of automation. Diversity of thought triggered the question, are we doing that in-house? Or do we go out and look for a partner? And that's what we did. So we did find TuSimple, a company from California that's mastering truck automation. TuSimple is running already fleets of trucks between Arizona and Texas hub to hub today, so they can do that. And then at the same time, they need automotive-grade electronics and components, and here ZF is going to deliver sensors, control units, and actuators into the systems. So together, we have a clear aspiration to launch automated trucks in 2024-2025 timeframe. And let's look into another example where diversity of thought was driving our decisions. We need LiDAR sensors to automate vehicles on different levels, and years ago we invested into a German startup, IBEO. So IBEO is in serious production with LiDAR sensors and just recently won one of the biggest contracts in the world for LiDAR application. Now the higher levels of automation require different technical specifications from a LiDAR sensor, for instance, a larger range. And we were at the brink of thinking, are we putting more money into IBEO and develop that technology? Or do we go into the market and see where it is available? Here we came across AEVA, another startup company from California, who has exactly developed this kind of next and additional level of LiDAR system. So you can see how we complete our portfolio and be a fully fledged LiDAR supplier by having a stake in a company on one hand and a strong partnership on the other hand. So diversity of thought and action once more. With that, let's move to the third principle. Courage needs to be demonstrated with action. That speaks for itself. It takes guts and then also good risk management to change the world. And our 7 billion deal purchasing WABCO is one of these examples. So we had prepared for that for a long time and came to closing in May. The very month after April, where we had hardly any sales in North America and Europe wasn't much better. So on the management board, we were asking ourselves, is this the right time to proceed with this significant acquisition? So we thought about the deal rationale, the industrial logic, and we concluded that's still true. Right? Becoming a commercial vehicle powerhouse is not impacted by the news from the pandemic. It's still a valid target. And then on the other hand, we went back to our confidence of leadership principle. Because in May we had seen how our organization would treat the crisis and how they scaled back and were in course already of relaunching some of the operations successfully. So there was trust in the organization. And those two decision points made us proceed. The rest is known. We did close the WABCO deal in May and now are eagerly working on the integration of the new company. And here's another example about how action and courage matter. Just prior to the crisis, there was an opportunity offered to us when Veoneer decided to divest from their brake systems business in North America. Again, a very important question for the leadership. Should we pursue that opportunity? We're in the midst of the crisis. Is it even physically safe to think about due diligence, to think about visiting this other company's sites? Well, we had an active safety division that was really passionate about it and showed confidence and was credible in the way they wanted to approach it throughout the crisis and after closing. So we let them work through the deal. Well, also that transaction at the price of $1 was closed in the time frame of the crisis in August, actually. And where does it leave us? Well, we strengthened our leadership position in integrated brake controls, and that's an important piece of the foundation when we talk about vehicle motion control. You remember that was the first trend that we really want to shape from ZF. Last not least, I want to talk about transmission. It could not be a ZF presentation if we didn't touch on transmission, our most traditional business. So here we made another clear decision. We are no longer going to develop any transmission product that is purely dedicated to internal combustion engines. So rather, all transmissions are going to be able to be hybridized. And obviously we go beyond that. So our colleagues from the e-mobility division, they bring up complete electric drivetrain modules. So here's a combination of a reduction or a two-speed gearbox integrated with an electric motor plus power electronics on top of it. So you see how we pursue the trend of electrification. The next management decision was to say, let's bring these two divisions, so the powertrain division and the e-mobility division together as well, to demonstrate that we are really, really serious going forward into only hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and electric modules. And on top of that, Let's also take advantage in driving the organization forward. Because now working under one roof, competencies and skills are more naturally migrate from the electrics and electronics folks into the traditional units. So this brings me to the end of the prepared remarks. Let's go through these 3 key leadership principles once more. Agility requires confidence of leadership. Diversity in general and diversity of thought is a strength. Courage needs to be demonstrated with action. So you see, at ZF, we do not only tolerate uncertainty, but we embrace it. And we strive to find ways to do both, excel and explore at the same time. So I look forward to continuing our dialogue and shaping the next generation mobility together. Thank you very much.
That was great, Dr. Fischer. What a perfect kickoff for our Thought Leadership series. Now, before I detail a little more of what we have going on with the show and our move to September, I want to open up with the floor to questions. As you can see on the screen, simply go to slido.com or enter our event info, which is NAIS-ZF. Once you do that, your question will be put in the queue for Dr. Fischer. If he is unable to get to your question today, someone from ZF will make sure to respond to you very shortly. With that out of the way, I want to throw it back to Dr. Fischer. Martin, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rod. And first of all, I would like to introduce Tony Sapienza. Tony is our head of North American communications, and he's connected by voice. So in the next 15, 20 minutes, he's going to read your questions to me. Tony, let's get started.
All right, thanks, Martin. We've got a lot of great questions already. You talked a little bit about autonomous driving as being one of ZF's 4 focus areas. This person asks, autonomous driving is really exciting, but it seems to be years away. How does ZF justify the investments it's making in autonomy when the return could take quite a while?
Yeah, good question to begin with. We are highly convinced that this trend is going to happen. I mean, autonomous driving at levels 4 and 5 is going to happen. And it's about really all the money that flows into that field these days. When you look at the traditional OEMs, at the traditional suppliers, but then also at the venture capitalists, at the startup companies, I mean, this is massive investment that's going to push the trend. So I think it's important to aim high and have that true north in mind for level 4, level 5 automation. This allows us to really structure our roadmaps. So we can design and prepare for relevant product, and we can also scale the investments in the right way. But all that won't work without making money on this way to level 4 and level 5. So for us, it's important that we play really in both areas. We play in advanced driver assistance systems, so level 2, level 2 plus, and level 3 systems, as well as in the higher level automated vehicles. So when we look at our sensors and control units, I mean, things that are going to apply later, we can basically scale to the needs of level 2 and level 3 components and sell them today. So get a little return already on the way. Don't wait out for the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, thanks, Martin. This next person asks, you talked about how you diversified your expertise and your range of products, specifically mentioning your acquisition of WABCO and the acquisition of TRW in 2014. Both of these were very large acquisitions. So this person asks, can you talk about your M&A strategy? And do you see ZF Group pursuing more large acquisitions in the future?
Yeah, it does become evident that M&A is a clear part of our strategy. And we have really developed good practice to execute on the M&As and always on the integration. That's most important. So I think it's fair to state we are going to brief a little bit, because in the last 5 years we have spent about $20 billion into these 2 major deals, plus a couple of minor activities on the side as well. So we want to integrate, we really want to harvest from those acquisitions first. But then looking forward, it's probably important to also understand our shareholder structure. ZF is held by 2 charitable foundations, and that's our first purpose in life, to provide means to them that they can help the public with their charitable projects. But then, I mean, when you look at our proceeds and the cash that we generate through the business activity, to a vast extent, we can reinvest that money into the business. Here we go. That means growing out of the current portfolio today, but it also means preparing for the next M&A deals after we have digested the current ones.
Okay, next question. You clearly showed how ZF has evolved a lot in recent years by expanding its range of products and systems. Where would you say that ZF is in that evolution? And do you think that ZF needs to expand even into more product categories in the future?
Yeah, I would think we have well established now those 4 activity fields with vehicle motion control, integrated safety, automated driving, and electrification. And there's a lot of growth potential coming out of these 4 fields. I'm sure we want to exploit that first before we think even going beyond those 4 trends. At the same time, I think it's important to understand there's good links between these 4 trends as well. I'll give you some examples. Think about an electric vehicle. Through the batteries, they tend to get heavier. In order to have that same gentle ride performance, our vehicle motion control solutions are going to help with really good suspension systems. Or another one, with ADAS and autonomous driving comes with additional sensors around the vehicle. We can use these sensors to drive better integrated safety. So that's just another example. Or have an autonomous truck. What is important to keep it safely on the road? You need highly dynamic and precise steering. So here's the link between automated driving and vehicle motion control again. So we believe that we position ourselves very well as a system supplier who does not only work within these 4 trends, but also comes to really valuable connections, additional functionality, and additional value to the user, therefore.
Okay, great. Next question. ZF is making a pretty big bet on electrification, even though only a small fraction of U.S. sales are EVs and hybrids, and gas is really still low at $2 a gallon. Why are you so confident about the future of electric vehicles?
I think here we have to clearly apply a global view and look through the different regions in the world and what are the trends in China, in Europe, and in North America. So starting off in China, there is clear political ambitions to push the green agenda forward. And when we study the 5-year plan that is in place right now, the goal is already in 5 years from now, in 2025, to have 20% of the vehicles, of the new light vehicles, be new energy vehicles. Means 20% will be either plug-in hybrid vehicles or battery full electric vehicles. So that's pushing. And looking further out in 2030, we expect that the Chinese government is going to lead and expects 50% of the fleet to be electrified by 2030. Then moving over to Europe, similar situation. It was just last week that the European Commission announced their new CO2 targets. And overall, for the European region, they want to have a reduction increased now from 40 to 55%. And that's overall CO2 emission as compared to 1990. Also, the Commission gave an outlook on what might that mean for vehicle emissions and vehicle CO2 emissions. And here they want to increase the gain from 37.5% reduction to 50%. And this is being measured against 2021 values. So what we are going to supply next year has to be reduced, or is anticipated to be reduced by 50% in the following 9 years. So one can see how this is going to drive electrification. And then finally, moving over to North America, I think it has been exciting weeks for us because there's been so many press announcements out where our domestic OEMs advertise and introduce their electrification plans. So there will be exciting vehicles coming. We were just teaming up with FCA and announcing that plug-in hybrid Wrangler. So here's a highly iconic vehicle, a fun vehicle, that's going to get an electrification option later this year. And we'll see how consumers like that, right? To drive an off-road vehicle without any engine noise or enjoy 470 pound-foot of torque in that vehicle. So we will see if these offerings don't spur consumers' need and wants and desires because it's just a different propulsion proposal that brings fun to drive and in the case of the Wrangler, completely new feeling driving through the wilderness. So let's see. We are pretty optimistic that electrification is going to happen. And we have shaped our portfolio in the first step serving hybrids and plug-in hybrids, but we fully prepared then also for the battery electric vehicles.
All right, thank you, Martin. So this next question comes from Jim. There's been a lot of talk also of hydrogen. Jim asks, what's your thought on hydrogen and what the timeline might be for that as a fuel source?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts around hydrogen. I mean, we see it happen more on the commercial vehicle side. That would be our bet these days where it's going to happen first. And the overarching question is, it's driven obviously by the green Ford. We have to make sure at the same time as an industry beyond automotive that we also can provide green hydrogen, right, in order to get the real ecological effect that we want. But again, as a company, as ZF, we have an eye on the commercial vehicle side. That's what we are preparing the most for.
Okay, so Megan is asking, obviously COVID is a big unknown. What are the things keeping you up at night or that you're thinking about as you consider 2021?
Yeah, I mean, it's the uncertainty, right, that we all go through and that mankind doesn't appreciate at all. How we're going to get through that pandemic. And we have seen really rough dynamics that came out of the pandemic and that impacted our operations a lot. Like most of you, we had to shut down facilities in April and May because there was just no need for production. And now we all together enjoy really months of high call-offs here in North America. So everybody back in place and make it happen, right? Bring product out with quality and at the right quantity. So that keeps us up sometimes. So now the question is going forward, how long is that up and down going to last? Where are we going to settle? We do think at ZF we are not going to see the same high volumes in the market again that we enjoyed in 2017 and 2018. So we prepare for a bit of reduction as compared to these levels. And for the rest, we hope, of course, that vaccines come out. We can get out of the pandemic and more back to normal, controlled and steady businesses.
Okay, great. Thank you, Martin. This next person asks, with one potentially good thing out of the COVID might be that we're learning that we can work remotely really well, and in some cases, maybe even more efficiently. This person asks, what's ZF's perspective on remote work, not only in offices, but maybe even through in factories and talent sharing, and how we can maybe make some silver lining out of what's going on right now?
Yeah, we can certainly relate to that at ZF. I mean, everybody being a bit more traditional, we enter that whole remote work activity and experience a bit critical. But 6 months in, we are highly convinced there's really good merit to it. We see that we are really efficient and effective at the same time and have made decisions to sustain that model also beyond the crisis. So when it comes, first of all, to roles and jobs that can be performed remotely, we have made our mind up. We are going to give that flexibility to the workforce going forward. When it comes to value add and shop floor work, that's obviously a bit more difficult. I mean, there is a physical presence required. It's not going to happen there. But when it comes to support functions in the plant, we are also experimenting there what kinds of model can lead us forward.
All right, thank you, Martin. So this next question talks about the environmental aspect of electrification, although on a different side of the equation. How does sustainability, on our manufacturing factor into the equation when we consider the environment and our role?
Yeah, at ZF we have given ourselves a target as well. We want to be CO2 neutral by 2040. And that is true for our own facilities as well as for our supply chain. So here's a clear commitment that we give to society. And here's clear programs that we pursue to make it happen in factories and again, also all the way down the supply chain. So an important aspect, not only really get the product cleaner, but also the way we produce that product.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. We're just going a bit over. This next person asks, how does ZF identify startups or for equity stakes or partnerships? What's our strategy, and what do we find that's helpful to connect us to the right companies?
Yeah, very important question, because we talked about the big acquisitions, but going into the right partnerships with startup that can give us really state-of-the-art technology is evenly important. So for this reason at ZF, we have implemented a clear scouting process. We have a team of our engineering group, the central engineering group, that's out in the markets, be it the West Coast here, be it Israel, be it in China and Asia. And it's just talking, right, to people and is scouting what's going on. And then there's a very well-defined process how we follow up with this initial information and how we drive forward to potential partnering or even investment decisions. So again, want to advertise really concentrated effort and good dedication to that task itself. Tony, you said that was the last question. We are coming up with time. First of all, thanks for having facilitated, Tony, this morning. And a very big thank you to the audience. Thanks you tuned in, and thanks for having presented great questions. I hope we stay together in that format, and I look forward to the next Queued Up Mobility session. With that, back to Rod. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Fischer. We really do appreciate your partnership with our show. As I'm sure you've already heard by now, the NIES is reinventing itself once again. We're proud to announce that starting in 2021, NAIS will be kicking off our show in September. Our press days will be September 28th and 29th, with industry days being on 29th and 30th. The public show will run from October 2nd through the 9th. We felt this timing allowed us to continue our presence on the global stage for worldwide reveals and took some of the pressure off our OEM partners in what became a really crazy spring schedule. Just a couple more housekeeping things before we sign off. Please mark your calendars for the following dates. APA is hosting a virtual chat with Trevor Paul, the newly appointed Chief Mobility Officer of Michigan's Office of Future Mobility and Electrification. This session will be held on September 24th at 1 p.m. For more information and to register, go to automotivepressassociation.net. On October 20th, SAA will be having a broadcast featuring Michael Robinette from IHS Markit, talking about how suppliers can navigate the post-COVID market. More information can be found off their homepage at saaauto.com. Lastly, our next Queued Up Mobility broadcast is slated for October 22nd at 1 p.m. This broadcast will feature executives from Ford, Harman, and Amazon Web Services who sit on the Experiences Per Mile Advisory Council. The EPM Advisory Council is a collaboration of automotive executives, analysts, and technology insiders established to uncover best practices and foster cross-industry innovation to improve the in-vehicle experience. So with that, I'd like to thank ZF and all of you for your time today, and I look forward to speaking with you all again on October 22nd.